This is me. I apologize, I'm not in this pose. But I'm a cartoonist. I'm a scientist. I like combining the two, but really I think I'm just a storyteller. I like telling stories. And recently I've been really obsessed with the stories behind scientific achievements. But in particular, Canadian achievements in science. Because I define myself as a Canadian person type thing. So I think it's important to learn more about my history. The thing is, where do achievements come from? Where do achievements come from? Most of us don't really care, but, well, why should we? We don't really care. Well, most of us don't care how something works so long as it does. So, really, as long as our phones are functional, we have access to the internet and to cats, then we're good. But I think the problem is we're a society that's too fixated on shiny results, and we don't think too much about the process. I think the process is the most important part, because if you know how you got there, you can do it again, and even better, you can refine it. So the problem is, like, if you don't think that way, then the progress of society may as well be this big automated freaking machine you just put money into, and it's like cranking out new iPods and computers every year. That's not how it works. At no point did this ever happen, and then you have your new iPhone every single year. Okay? I'm really sorry you're recording this. How far can I walk with this thing? Oh, jeez. Okay, that's not good. The thing is, like, behind this whole facade, there's actually a lot of people. There's tons and tons of people. There's their families. There's dead people. There's alive people. There's their dogs. Their hobbies, their interests, their hopes and their fears, and their nightmares, especially. And behind every success, there's countless failures. There's just setback after setback. That needs to be paid attention to. The problem is, even when we talk about the people, we don't think about... Okay, if I say, think of a scientist, who are you going to think of? Just shout a few names. What? Like, it's just the A-team. It's Einstein, it's Newton, who else? Like Darwin, Aristotle, who, by the way, wasn't even a scientist. He's a philosopher at best. Marie Curie, who won 2 Nobel Prizes, gets less mention than this guy. A Polish woman who pioneered research in radioactivity and later died of radiation sickness gets less screen time than a guy who thought the fucking elements of the universe are earth, water, air, and fire. Fuck this guy. It pains me, even when we think about the people, it's like, we don't think about a lot of Canadian people. These so-called little guys, or girls, contribute just as much as the big people, I think. These are just some of them. Harriet Brooks on the left, she's like a Canadian version of Marie Curie. Did a lot of work in nuclear physics. Banting and Best, you might have heard their names in the context of diabetes. They figured out, oh, the dog thing is involved there. I think they figured out, I don't know, diabetes. I didn't say I know about all of them. Irene Adler, who I'm going to talk about a bit more now, she was a Japanese-Canadian geneticist. And I only read about her like a few months ago, but now I'm totally obsessed with this woman. She's really amazing. She passed away in 2013, but lived an exceptionally long life. Born in Vancouver, actually. She was given the name Ayako by her parents, which means splendid. Isn't that cute? For whatever reason, her piano teacher found her name difficult to pronounce, so she just decided to call her Irene. And I guess that stuck for the rest of her life, because white people always have the last say. So, I'm kidding. It's true. So, the thing is, though, Irene lived a very difficult childhood. She When she was young, she lost her best friend in a traffic accident. And then she also lost one of her sisters to tuberculosis. And I think this is important because very early on in her life, this kind of instilled this idea in her that she needed to help people. She really cared a lot about helping people. And I think when we look at these scientists, a lot of times it's hard to think of them as just people, you know, like they're on this other plane of existence. But she, like this is in her own words, she said she never really thought of herself as being this great scientist. She just wanted to help people. And I think that is a trait that's not exclusive to being a scientist. She was also really curious. Both of her parents owned bookstores. I wonder if that's how they met. And she read books all the time, and she debated people, like she argued with people over grammar. She was described as being a really feisty person, which is kind of cool. So it's not much of a surprise she ended up doing her BA in literature, or at least started to anyhow, at UBC. But it was kind of cut short by something else that was going on. And so the Second World War broke out. Irene went to Japan with her mom and her sisters and then hated it there, and she decided to come back. Little did she know, that was the last boat back to Canada. It was in 1941. And then a month later, Pearl Harbor happened. And then the Americans are like, fuck, the Japanese, Ben Affleck. And then the Canadians were all like, oh my god, the Japanese. And then internment camps happened. However, will they protect themselves from all the unarmed civilians living in their own neighborhoods? What will we do about all those people? Let's send, and then weird shit like this happened. This Irene and her dad and about 20,000 other Japanese Canadians, and here in BC were sent to internment camp. And by the way, you know what the most insulting thing about this whole thing is? To fund this whole, do you know how they funded this? They sold off the property and the businesses and the homes of all the Japanese people here, so they could go. That's like paying somebody reaching into your wallet, buying a rubber chicken with it, smearing their shit on it, and slapping you across their face with it. It's like I never asked for this thing to happen. It was just sold. You think with this whole thing she'd go into like a depression, but she didn't, man. I don't understand this woman. She's like, I bring it on. I don't care. She hasn't finished her education yet. She's asked to be a principal at a school there. She teaches like 500 kids at the internment camp. I'm there. She teaches, but she hasn't finished her degree, but she takes this whole thing on, and it's not like she had the best resources going into it too. Eventually, after this whole thing, she finds a place to stay at in Toronto. And in Toronto, the United Church offers her a place to stay, and she decides to finish her education. Kind of starts from scratch, I guess, but the best thing about this woman too is that she never really she was never aware of the whole I'm a woman in a man's world. She just kept doing things anyway. And then anyway, so she finished her BA, and then something else would start happening, and she took this class in introductory genetics, and her teacher told her to kind of, why not this thing? And something in her just activated. She just went in a completely different direction. And all of a sudden, before you know it, she's going from a BA in literature, presumably, to a PhD in genetics. Dude, this woman went from Pride and Prejudice to Down syndrome. What the hell? She works at a children's hospital there in Toronto, and at the time a birth defect that was really common was Down syndrome, and so she wanted to figure out what was causing it, and they knew that this was happening because of, I know it's cute, they knew this was happening because there was an extra chromosome that children were being born with. If you don't know, we all have 46 chromosomes, most of us, and if we have Down syndrome, then the 21st one, there's a tripling that's going on. Scientists knew. You just laughed at Down syndrome. They knew that it was because of radiation, but how were mothers being radiated? It just didn't make any sense. She donned her Sherlock cap and she probably didn't smoke though, but And she tried to figure out what was going on, and she realized, oh shit, women are getting abdominal X-rays, and it's affecting their children. So what was actually happening was there was a lot of pregnant women getting X-rays, and she conducted this huge test of 900 participants each, and realizes this link between X-rays and the risk of birth defects in children. Pretty amazing. With all this, I'm only beginning to skim the surface of her life. From this point on, she became the director of the Department of Medical Genetics at Winnipeg. She became the director of the cytogenetics lab at McMaster's. She taught at McMaster's. She taught pathology and pediatrics. She published more than 95 papers. I've probably written maybe 3 essays I'm proud of in my entire life. And she also got the Order of Canada. That's a huge deal. She got dementia in 2000 and passed away in 2013. Still a pretty late age, but the thing is, when people are remembering this woman, at least people who write about her that I've read about online, they describe her as as having a really strong personality. And she's not just this person who was a geneticist who discovered the link between X-ray radiation and Down syndrome. She was a person, okay? She was described as being feisty, as being charming, and as not giving up. She dealt with so much horseshit in her life, and none of it seemed to faze her. These are great traits to have in a person. And they're not necessarily traits that belong in a scientist. She just applied them in a different way. She just wanted to help people. She was a person, she was a really beautiful person. She's gone, but she contributed so much. And she was just only one part of this whole puzzle here. If you just pay attention to any one of these people, an entire universe opens up. And so that's kind of what I'm interested in. That's what this whole talk is. This is kind of an invite to collaborate potentially. I want to organize some sort of event that celebrates Canadian achievements in science. And not just the Canadian part, but the people part, the face behind the equation, all the stuff that's going on underneath to get to that final thing that you take for granted. It's a very early idea, it's not well thought out, and I know I'm going into my question time. But you guys are great, thanks. What's up?
Congratulations, amazing presentation. I love how you brought the scientific world with, cartoon. How you did that fusion is just flawless, okay? That should be brought up more so that people will be more, not even adults, but kids, everybody, right? In all different sectors of Canada. Because it's just like a heritage. She's amazing, what she did. I mean, how you describe her in your words and in the cartoons, it's just amazing, okay, right? And I wanted to ask, how did you find out about her? And, how did you come to know about her?
So the question, well, first of all, thanks. I'm glad you liked the presentation. The question was, how did I find out about her? In Google, I typed Canadian scientists. I could have given you something more emotional, but that's all it was. Which is a little bit sad too, that anybody could do that, and whoa, look at all the shit they could find. But this is just my way of expressing this in comics. If some sort of event were organized, maybe Curiosity Collider organizing it, I think any form of art could capture the essence or the biographies of these type of people. I like doing it with comics because I love seeing the humor and stuff. She probably would tear this presentation to pieces, by the way. That's the kind of person she was. She was always giving really rash comments, but at heart she really cared about people. And that is the sort of thing that's missed out on Wikipedia. You're not going to get that shit from Wikipedia. I had to read on 5-6 different sources to kind of and maybe piece together something that she might be okay with. But thank you. Anyway, yeah, I just Googled.
That's why I asked, a lot of these history gets sort of shut down, and they never teach this in school, right? It gets like sort of like almost erased, right? So that's why I asked you about that.
Yeah, I never learned about her in school, but and I never really figured out what happened during the internment camps. I just thought all the Japanese people were like in stasis, but I didn't think that people like her would have any kind of positive outlook on life during something like that and actually want to teach people. So yeah, thanks for the question. That was a great question. Hope I answered it. Hello.
What tools do you use to make your comics, and how do you disseminate?
I use Photoshop. This is one way I disseminate it, but I also have a website. I have a portfolio. We can chat after, and I can give you a card.
Also, just curious, where do you draw your inspiration?
Where do I draw my inspirations from?
How do you, like, in this case, it's great you've chosen Canadian science. Are there other subjects that you also promote or are interested in?
Oh, are there other subjects I'm interested in? Cats. Cats are pretty cute. Cats are cool because they don't really care about you, but you care about them a lot. But they're science education is a big thing for me. I have drawn comics for the school curriculum, and the whole past year I worked on this big interactive comic that was hopefully going to be used in elementary schools now, sort of for grades 4 to 7. So the idea of just getting complicated ideas across through imagery, that's sort of where I draw my inspiration from. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not to me.
Cool. Is that nice? Well, thank you.